It's amazing. This is genuinely top work, everyone. It's really, really good. Shout out to Africa, man, for making this possible. The greatest show on planet Earth. The African Cup of Nations has generated some of the most viral and downright ridiculous moments in recent footballing history. Referee blowing his full-time whistle in the 85th minute because he's being subjected to 57 degrees Celsius heat. Check. A team getting eliminated, sacking their manager, then actually still being in a tournament and going on to win it. Completed it, mate. Gabon's entire squad getting assassinated this year? Probably. But Afcon shouldn't just be considered a meme, because in my honest opinion, I believe it's the embodiment of raw, unadulterated, unedited, passionate football. And this version has been absolutely no different. From vibrant fans to chaotic and beautiful goals, incredible controversy to Pats and Daka almost becoming paraplegic from a goal celebration, it all culminated in a final between two of the pre-tournament favourites, Morocco and Senegal. Not Nigeria, because we were too busy doing yams this week. And what would go on to happen would prove to be one of the most ridiculous moments and preposterous half-an-hour spells I think I've ever seen in football.
Today I feel African.
Now, of course, Morocco made history by being the first African side to ever make it to the semi-finals of a World Cup. So they are, of course, favourites going into this one with the likes of Brahim Diaz and Bunu in goal. Bunu, who had done his best Emi Martinez impression by denying Iliman Ndiaye in the first half. An Emi Martinez impression, not like what Emi did against Everton, because that would have been bad. Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got the likes of Iliman Ndiaye playing for Senegal. Of course, the great Sadio Mane, formerly of Liverpool and Bayern. Edouard Mendy in between the sticks. Khalidou Koulibaly. Nicholas Jackson up top. This is really a clash of the golden generations, to be honest with you. I somehow forgot Ashraf Hakimi existed when introducing Morocco, but this was a star-studded set of players. But in fairness, the actual game itself was pretty cagey, as big finals tend to be these days. And so going into injury time, the scoreline was still 0-0. Senegal, though, would have the ball in the back of the net, only for it to be blown for a foul, an incredibly soft foul, before the ball had actually struck the back of the net. It meant VAR couldn't intervene because the ball was technically dead on arrival, only for Morocco to go up the other end and get a soft penalty of their own against El Hadji Diouf. Now, this has been a theme of the tournament. I think the one thing that has consistently, relatively speaking, underperformed during this tournament, it's had great action, it's had amazing goals, it's had incredible moments, but I think the refereeing has been poor. Now, people have said, because it's being hosted in Morocco, that it may well be rigged. I'm not going to go that far, because I think that's a very mad thing to say, and I don't even necessarily believe that either. But Morocco have consistently received some interesting refereeing decisions. Even in the game where they beat us, you know, like Nigeria in the semi-finals. Don't get twisted. We deserve to lose. Morocco deserved to beat us. They were much the better team. But some of the decisions in that game were insane. Brian and Burmo should have had a penalty against them for Cameroon. There were crazy decisions in the group stages as well. I have nothing against Morocco. I have no skin in the game in this tournament anymore upon the final two teams left. I wouldn't have minded if they won, but if they'd have won in this particular manner, no chance. And Senegal weren't happy with it either. Their manager, Pap Thiaw, upon the giving of the decision, called his players off the pitch. They were ready to forfeit the match before the penalty, which would have been basically the final kick of the game, was even to be taken. He ordered his players off the pitch at the end of an Afcon final because of a dodgy penalty decision. This is unseen before. Of all the foolishness that we've seen at Afcon in the past, we've never even seen this before. This has reached new heights now. But shout out to Sadio Mane. He saw what was developing and decided that no, with dignity, even if it's a refereeing mistake, we need to come out, we need to allow the penalty to happen, and if we lose, we lose. The players came back out. Brahim Diaz stood over the penalty with the weight of his nation on his back. He anchored it down the middle, and Edouard Mendy made a save. Guys, you've never seen this before. This is outright one of the maddest moments I've seen in football in the last decade.
What the fuck did I just watch?
It doesn't get more ridiculous than this. The Afcon scriptwriters have gone absolutely nuts with this one. I believe Brahim Diaz missed it on purpose to avoid getting castrated by 11 Senegalese angry men. But now he's got a different angry man to deal with, because Morocco's manager will be catching him and doing all manner of disgraceful slide tackles on him in the dressing room 7.3 seconds after full time. He was genuinely actually beefing him as Brahim was getting pulled off the pitch. It was carnage, by the way, this. Like, this was the last kick of the whole thing. You genuinely have to be on crack cocaine to see all of this drama develop, yeah? Again, I have to just remind you, dodgy penalty decision after dodgy disallowed goal decision, which we'll talk about in more detail a little bit later on. The opposition, their manager has called the players off. They've gone back to the dressing room. Players are sitting down, posting Snapchats mid-game because their manager's brought them off the pitch and taken them back to the dressing room. 20 minutes later, after all of the dust settles, you take a penalty to end 50 years of hurt for your nation at a competition they've not won in decades, and you try and Panenka the goalkeeper on some Karim Benzema stuff in the 24th minute of injury time, mind you. We don't need style, broski. We just need results. Trying to get out of that stadium for him is gonna be a mad thing. He's gonna be arrested by the Moroccan Secretary of State. Poor Brahim Diaz, man, when he eventually gets out, he drives home, he gets out of the wagon, and he sees 7 black vans parked outside his house, 28 men in balaclavas, and a smoke grenade 3 yards away from him. At least he can maybe use the excuse to his missus that he actually missed the pen on purpose in the interest of fair play. And of course, naturally, we all knew what was going to happen as soon as that penalty was missed. Just 3 minutes into extra time, the half an hour before penalties, Pat Guy would go up the other end of the pitch and would score an absolute screamer, to be fair to him, and Senegal would win 1-0, taking home the African Cup of Nations in maybe the most dramatic of fashions. I mean, when I said in the intro about, a side thinking they were getting eliminated, of course, that was Cote d'Ivoire. They sacked their manager. They, made it through against all odds as one of the best third place teams in the end, and then went on to win the entire tournament. I thought that was going to be one of the craziest storylines. Zambia winning the Afcon, I think, of 2012 against all odds. Massive underdog story. I think the overall actual picture and the overall scene of this is one of the most dramatic ways that any tournament has ever been concluded. Certainly one of the most controversial. And poor Brahim Diaz, man. Like, whilst I'm making jokes about him, I do feel absolutely horrendous for him. It is a kamikaze bit of decision making, but the guy has had an unbelievable tournament. I think he's been the player of the tournament, if we're being real, up to this stage, but everything that he's done kind of gets wiped out for that one very moment. I mean, he still won the Golden Boot, though he did still look clinically depressed during it, knowing that he's got a 4.7 billion Moroccan dirham bounty on his head right now. The poor guy's going through probably the lowest point of his career, and he's got to stand and now talk to Gianni Infantino as well, just when he thought it couldn't get any worse.
The worst day of your life so far.
It was a penalty that was so bad that it's genuinely created discourse on whether it was actually missed on purpose, which of course it wasn't. There's no reason for him to do that. There's no reason for Morocco to throw away a tournament in their own backyard, especially given all the other stuff that's been going on in Morocco's favour during the course of this tournament. I just know that they will be delivering Brahim Diaz back to the Spanish national team again. Yeah, they're done with him now. Achraf Hakimi will be wishing that he'd put the penalty in his mother's name to secure this title. Meanwhile, if I'm Senegal, if I'm Sadio Mane, this is the way that I get what I want now. If a tight offside goes against me back in Saudi Arabia, I'm getting the gang to walk off the pitch, bro. Get them off, 10 minutes later, come back on, they'll miss the penalty anyway. This is a new tactic now. We also need to evacuate speed out of the air with the utmost speed, to be honest with you. He was there during, of course, his stream where he's touring Africa right now. He was the mascot before the game kicked off. Moroccan fans will think he was playing right wing for Senegal, and they will be attacking him immediately. It was genuinely a bonkers scenario. The main storyline, the key plot of this was absolutely crazy, but there were other subplots going on at the same time. You had supporters scrapping whilst the penalty was even being taken in the first place. It was just a crazy atmosphere all round. You had obviously the build-up and what had gone on before. I mentioned Morocco have had some interesting decisions go in their favour, and it has been a discourse throughout the entire tournament as to why that is happening. There was also other stuff going on. A weird, I don't know, I've never really seen this before, and in theory it shouldn't really have a big impact, but I think when you combine everything together and the fact that it's a home tournament for a team that's in the final, Moroccan ball boys and like actual officials and security were continuously stealing items from goalkeepers of their opponents all tournament, namely towels. They did it against Nigeria in the semi-finals, where our goalkeeper would bring his towel over just to, to sit behind the goal, and ball boys and officials were coming over and stealing it, and they did it then against Senegal. Of course, no one's doing that to Bunu in Morocco's net. It is just a way to disadvantage their opponents, and that is not in the spirit of fair play, and we'll talk about what Senegal did by walking off in a second, but that isn't in the spirit of you're hosting a tournament. The only home advantage you should have at a tournament that you're hosting is the home advantage of fans. That's fine, or the home advantage of knowing where you're playing and being kind of just feeling at home. It shouldn't be state officials or footballing officials at stadiums taking equipment away from goalkeepers. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, we had literal scraps during the game because Senegal's backup goalkeeper was having to defend towels from ball boys that were trying to steal it off him. Who is giving these ball boys this power, or ball boys and ball girls as well? Who is giving them this power? This is not their jurisdiction to be having scraps with professional footballers mid-game. It's distracting for your opponents. It's distracting for Edouard Mendy behind the scenes. And, you know, you could argue it's a bit of shithousery, but I think it goes a little bit too far when it's like, again, heads of security at stadiums stealing shit, you know? If the other goalkeeper had come along and chucked his water bottle away once, then fine. But this was a consistent theme throughout the latter stages of the entire tournament for Morocco to gain an advantage. Diouf defended it with his life, to be fair to him, even away from Moroccan goalkeepers, and Moroccan substitutes as well, and would then celebrate on Snapchat with his towel intact and also with his medal as well. Morocco winning the Fair Play Award amongst all of this now seems like a bit of a farce. In terms of the aftermath, obviously, you know, Sadio Mane, I think, has cemented himself really as an African footballing legend, having won Afcon multiple times now. Justice for Diao as well, the guy from Como, the youngster from Como, Alassane Diao, who of course missed this tournament because of Cesc Fabregas's mismanagement of him by bringing him back for an injury for no reason, like 3 days before he was supposed to fly out for the tournament, or a week before. Hopefully he gets a chance to actually defend this Afcon crown with Senegal next time, and also slight tackle Cesc Fabregas in training. Also, I said that Senegal would win on stream. You can go and follow my Twitch down in the description below. So that's just unadulterated footballing knowledge right there. But of course, obviously, we've got to talk about the overall issue of walking off the pitch, because Pape Thiaw has encountered a lot of criticism, most namely from his opposite number in the dugout from Morocco. Morocco's manager has said that it wasn't sporting, that yes, he's a champion now, but ultimately that has tarnished, you know, kind of the idea and concept of African football as a general. I hear it, you know, I don't think in many situations you should be bringing your players off the pitch because you disagree with a refereeing decision. Otherwise, it would take a long time to get Premier League games done, I'll tell you that for free. Moroccan journalists basically boycotted his press conference at the end of the match. They walked out on him like he walked out on the match at the end. And I think a lot of Moroccan fans and Moroccan journalists are really crediting Brahim Diaz's penalty miss to the fact that he ultimately had to wait around for 25 minutes to be able to take it, which I totally understand. I don't actually, I've made jokes about Brahim Diaz, but I don't really have much in the way of like actual criticism for him. Again, definitely not the best decision to make, especially against Edouard Mendy, who saved Panenka penalties in the past. I can't even begin to think what was probably going on through his mind for 20 plus minutes whilst he was waiting to take a penalty that would win his nation a tournament they haven't won for 50 years on the continental stage. Pape Thiaw bringing his players off ultimately made that an even greater psychological ordeal for Brahim than it was already. But honestly, I hear him doing it. I do. I'm so sorry, because I don't want to be this guy who's like promoting the badness, the wickedness. Yeah, I don't want to come across like I'm this unprofessional guy and I promote unprofessional stuff happening in football games. But that decision making from the referee, from the officials, was outrageous. This wasn't just like a marginal foul and like maybe someone should have got a second yellow earlier on. No. In the space of 2 minutes, Senegal had a goal disallowed that in the modern era of VAR is an absolute daylight robbery. An absolute daylight robbery. Not only was it just not a foul in the build-up against the Moroccan player who just dived to the floor, which happens, you know, it's whatever. I'm not going to judge that Moroccan player or Moroccan defender too tough, because there's a final on the line, people will dive all over the gaff, whatever, yeah. But as a refereeing decision, you don't have an excuse to not let a piece of play finish anymore. Even if you think it might be a foul, you let it play out. If it ends up in the back of the net, you blow for a foul, and then at least VAR can check whether you were right or wrong. The fact that you didn't allow for that to happen is suspicious. That is one of the most egregious mistakes you can make as a referee nowadays. Not only that, but for the ball to then go up the other end immediately, and then for you to give a penalty via the VAR screen. He was bullied into looking at the VAR screen in the end. And then to give a penalty for something that was as soft as that was is insane. One or the other happening, and it's like, okay, that's just bad officiating, but both happening within 2 minutes. I think ultimately, rightly or wrongly, a point was made in that moment, and I think it was a point that needed to be made, especially given the context of the tournament up to that point. Again, I'd like to stress, I don't have any problems with Morocco. I don't give a fuck. Even though they beat us, in the semi-finals, they deserve to win. Like I said, they deserve to beat our boys Nigeria, yeah, and they deserve to be in the final. I cheered them on at the World Cup when they reached the semi-finals. I wanted them to go and win the entire thing against the odds. But to have had decisions go in their favor throughout the majority of the tournament, to have had those decisions, I mean, that would have just been such a robbery for Senegal. You had a moment where you scored the 92nd minute to win your country the tournament, taken away from you through sheer refereeing incompetence, and then a moment where your opponent can go and win through the very same incompetence. It would have been heartbreaking and completely undeserved. Factor in then all the bullshit that was going on with Edouard Mendy's towel throughout the course of the game. You got ball boys trying to beat up their backup goalkeeper to try and take a towel away from him just so the home nation can gain some sort of advantage. That, in my eyes, doesn't keep with the actual sportsmanship of the beautiful game either. Yes, ideally, a team shouldn't walk off the pitch in the face of adversity, but they shouldn't have to deal with that adversity against a home nation in the first place. That's just my opinion. Pap Thiaw has apologized now. We'll see where it goes from here. I think they were definitely right to come back on, and I think Sadio Mane should be given a lot of credit for getting his teammates back onto the pitch in the first place. But I think it does overall call into a bit of question. I think just all of the stuff that was going on calls into question what was going on with Morocco a little bit during the tournament. Again, I'm not claiming the thing was rigged. I don't think it was. But you've got to, at the very, control your fucking ball boys. What are we doing? I cannot stress enough. Ball boys should not be scrapping with players for holding a towel in the middle of a game. There's literally players happening in the background. The backup goalkeeper for Senegal is being wrestled to the floor by 4 ball boys and a stadium official. That is ludicrous by any metric, man. And for that genuine reason, I am legitimately happy for Senegal that they won. But what do you make of these shenanigans, man, honestly? Because it's one of the craziest things I've ever watched in football. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to this channel. I'll be talking about this again in FTW midweek, as well as everything else that goes on in football. You know the score by now. Slap a like on the video as well. 6,000 likes. Let's get that as an aim for this one. As I mentioned, yep, subscribe. You can also follow me on social media. It is @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. Drop it down below what you thought of Afcon 2026. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves. And goodbye.